If you like video tutorials that are taught in a step-by-step, fully narrated fashion, then please give this video a like, as that will make the YouTube robots happy. Okay, so you can see that detail. I think it's small details. However, I do think it adds a lot. Okay, what we're gonna do here is we're gonna change this cockpit yet again. I'm gonna press C for paint select. We're gonna select here. I'm gonna right click, just making sure I have all of the faces, which I don't. I'll select the hand to pan. Okay, roll the mouse button, zoom back. Okay, with this selected, what we're going to do is press the Y key. So what that did was that should have separated this geometry, even though it doesn't look like anything happened. So what we'll do is we'll hover here, press L. Now you can see this is separated. We'll press X to bring up our delete menu, and then we're going to choose faces to delete. Okay, we're going to go to edge select. We went to the upper left hand corner. We're going to hold Alt and then left click. We're going to press E to extrude, right click. Then we're going to push the extrusion down like this. You can see how the extrusion is going up. We're going to press S to scale on the Z axis 0, and then press enter to lock that that movement in, and that flattened out the bottom of this. So I'm going to push this down to get it to about level with that. Okay, I'm going to go to the mirror modifier. I'm going to select the mirror to temporarily turn that off. Okay, so I'm taking a look. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to left click to deselect, go to the, still have an edge selected. We're going to go to the upper left hand corner, go to object select. I'm going to select to apply the mirror modifier. I'm going to go back to the upper left. So we're pretty much, one of the reasons why I did that is we're pretty much done with most of the work in here. Applying that makes this work here easier to do. So what we're going to do is hold Control, press F. When I say applying that, I meant the mirror modifier. We'll select Grid Fill. I'll left click to deselect. Okay, I'm going to hold the middle mouse button to rotate the view, zoom back. I'm going to go to Face Select, select here, hold Shift Select there. I'm going to press E to extrude, right click, bring this back. Like that. I'm going to press E to extrude, right click. I'm going to press E to extrude, right click. Bring that back like that. Okay, I'm going to take the hand, then pan forward. I'm going to press S to scale this down like that. Left click to deselect. I'm going to hover here, press L, press X to bring up our delete menu, then choose faces to delete. Okay, I'm going to hold the middle mouse button to rotate the view. I'm going to now select here, hold shift, select here. I'm going to press E to extrude, right click, press S to scale that down to about there. I'm going to right click, select subdivide. Then I'm going to right click, go to loop tools, and then go to circle. Okay, I'm going to press E to extrude, right click, bring this up, press S to scale, press E to extrude, right click, S to scale, E to extrude, right click, push that down. I'm going to press E to extrude, right click, press S to scale, E to extrude, right click, bring this up some like that, then I'll press S to scale like that, and I'll left click to deselect. Okay, I'm going to roll the mouse wheel to zoom back. I'm going to hover here, press L, hold shift, press D, right click, pull this to the side. I'm going to press P. This brings up our separate menu. I'm then going to choose selection. Now I'm going to go to the upper left hand corner, go to object mode, select that object right there. I'm going to go up to the top, towards the upper left part of the screen, go to object, set origin, and then I'm going to choose origin to geometry. So that dot right there is the origin point of this object now. Okay, I'm going to hold shift, press C. That put the 3D cursor right in the center of our scene. With this object here selected, I'm going to hold shift, press S. This brings up our snap to menu. I'm going to choose selection to cursor. I'm going to go to the move tool, then push this down. I'll push this forward some like that. I'm going to hold the no mouse button to rotate. I'm going to go to the upper left, go to edit mode. I'm going to hold control, putting some loop cuts in here. I'll left click to deselect, or left click to select. Left click to lock those loop cuts in. Okay, I'm going to hold control, press B. Then I'm going to hold shift, which gives me fine selection. So I'm putting a bevel in those lines. I'll left click to lock that in. Okay, now I'm going to move my mouse up. I'm going to hold shift, press B to draw a zoom box to zoom in. With these bevel areas selected, I'm going to press I. I'm going to hold shift for fine selection. I'm going to push towards the bevels. Then I'm going to left click to lock that in. I have this inset faces menu right here. So what I can do is I can use this to get depth. So by dragging this, I'm able to push that in. Looks good. I'll left click to deselect. And now I'm going to zoom back. So now that I'm thinking about it, I'm going to hover here, press L, hold shift, press D, right click, move this to the side, press R to rotate on the Z, now. The y-axis, 9, 0. Then press Enter to lock that in. Then I'll move that up here like this. I'll press S2, scale that down. Now I'm going to hold Shift, press D, right click, move this down here like this. Trying to get a good place to position this. So I'll left click to deselect. I'm gonna hover here, press L, hold Shift, press D, right click, move this up. Left click to deselect. Okay, I'll hover here, I'll hold Control, press R, left click once, left click a second time to lock that in. I'll left click on nothingness to deselect. Okay, I'm going to go to the lower right. I'm going to go to front view. I'm going to go to face select, hover here, press L, move this away from the center line, left click on nothingness to deselect, go to the upper right to wireframe select, left click on nothingness to deselect. I'm going to press B for box select. I'm going to go slightly past the halfway point. I'm going to go to the upper right, go back to solid view. I'm then going to press X to bring up the delete menu, then choose faces to delete. Okay, with all that done, I'm going to go to the upper left. I'm going to go to object mode. I'm on the wrench, which is our modifiers. I'm going to go to the arrow, select there, put a mirror modifier on this, just to seem like the easiest way to duplicate these pieces. I'm going to select apply. With these pieces selected, I'm going to hold Shift, left click on the main mech. I'm then going to hold Control, press J to join those pieces to the main mech. Okay, with the main mech selected, I'm going to go to the upper left, go to edit mode. So I'm taking a look. One thing that needs to be done is we're going to zoom in to this back piece. I'll select here, hold Shift, select there. I'll just pull that back. I'll left click to deselect. Okay, I'm going to roll the mouse wheel to zoom back. I'm going to hold the middle mouse button to rotate the view. I'm going to go to the upper left. I'm going to go to edge select. I'm then going to go to select sharp edges. I'm going to look to this menu that popped up near the lower left, select sharp edges. I'm going to change this from 30 to 70. Then press enter to lock that in. Okay, I'm going to hold Control, press E. This brings up our edge menu. I'm going to select edge bevel weight. I'll left click and drag my mouse. If you look to the upper left hand side, you'll see there's a bevel weight there. I'll left click to lock that in. You could also look to the lower panel there on the lower left. You could also set the bevel weight as well. Okay, we did that for when we put the modifiers on later on. These purple lines that you see, we can have them not show by going to the overlay menu by selecting that arrow, and then we can go to this creases. Oh, here we go. Bevel. There we go. So we still have these lines here. Selected. So what I'm going to do is hold Control, press E. While we're here, I'm also going to put in mark seam. That mark seam, you will put that in the same way you did it before. If you're like what did he just do? You could go to select sharp edges, and then take that sharp edges to 70, just like we did before, and then just choose mark seam this time. There's another way you could do it. So I'm going to go to overlay. I'm going to turn off that seam. The mark seams are for working with UVs later on. Okay, I'm going to hold the middle mouse button. I'm going to hold Control, hold the right mouse button. Before I select, I'll go to Face Select. I'll hold Control, hold the right mouse button again. I'm trying to select this arm right here. I'll hold Control, select that. Nope. I'll hold the middle mouse button to rotate. I'm holding Control as well as the right mouse button, trying to select the arm. I'll now hold Control, press L to, hopefully I have that arm. There's pieces on the back that I don't have. So for this, I'm going to press C for paint select. I'll paint them. What you don't want to grab, you can use the paint select to grab. I mean to not grab, I should say. So I'm going to go to the wireframe view. Looks like we have everything. There's a little of this that is grabbed. So I'm going to press C to try to deselect that piece right there. I'll press C to deselect that piece as well. Still some. I'll go to vertex select, press C, hold the middle mouse button. So I'll zoom back. I'll hold. I'm gonna hold Control, press L, so we can see that we have this here as well, which I don't want. I'll go to wireframe, press C, deselect this here. Right click, go back to solid view, hold Control, press L, there we go. I'll press P, this brings up our separate menu, and then choose selection. Okay, what I'm going to do is go to the upper left hand corner, go to object mode. I'm going to select these arms. I'm then going to press M. I'm going to go to this more parts collection, then left click there. So now those arms are in that more parts collection. Okay, you can see there's a piece that I missed here. So I'm going to select on the mech, go to the upper left, go to edit mode. I'm going to hold Control, hold the right mouse button to draw a lasso select. I'll let go of Control. I'm holding Control again, holding the right mouse button. So I have those two pieces partially selected. I'm going to hold Control, press L to select all of those pieces. Then I'm going to press P to bring up the separate menu, choose selection to separate. So now these are their own separate object. We'll go to the upper left, go to object mode. We'll go to the more parts collection, turn the eye on, turn the eyes off for everything but the arms. We'll select that piece so you can see through the arms. Hopefully you can see that. Those pieces are selected. So I'll hold shift, left click on the arms, and then I'll hold control, press J. So now those pieces are connected to the arms again. Okay, so I'm going to turn off the arms. I'm going to go to the more parts collection, turn that off. I turn those off by selecting the eye. Okay, we're going to select our mech. I'm going to zoom back. I'm going to hold shift, press D, right click. So I have a duplicate of the mech now. This duplicate, we can see this is named cube.004. I'm going to double click over here, name this low poly. Okay, this low poly mech, I'm going to select the eye to hide that. I'm going to select this mech. It's called cube currently. I'm going to double click that. I'm going to name this high poly. Press enter to lock that in. Okay, with this main mech, we want to add 2 modifiers to this. So we're going to go to add modifier. We're going to select a subdivision surface modifier to put on this. You can see that made the mech look strange. We'll deal with that. We're going to deal with that by putting a bevel modifier on. So we'll left click. So we have the bevel modifier on. You don't see a change there. It's because the bevel modifier in the stack of modifiers here. Here's the subdivision surface modifier. This represents the subdivision surface modifier. This is the bevel modifier. See these arrows here? We want to put this bevel modifier above the subdivision surface modifier, so I'm about to left click on arrow. That should make things look much better. So I'm left clicking. Takes it a little bit of time to go up. So now that we have that, when we look here, we still have like this I can't think of the word right now. We want this to be smooth. So I'm going to right click, select shade smooth, right? So even with shade smooth, this is still here. So what we want to do is we put those bevel weight, we set the lines up where we set the bevel weight. When we look to this limited method, what we want to do is select weight. And now you can see this is nice and smooth. Okay, so what we want to do now is we want to make sure that the different parts of our more parts are also set up. So I'm going to go to the collection, turn on the eye. I'm going to turn on the robot arms. So the robot arms have the bevel edge weight set up on them already. So I'll left click on these arms, right click, select shade smooth, right? So now with these selected, I'm going to hold shift, left click on our mech, then I'm going to hold control, press L, our make links menu pops up, and then what we're going to do is select modifiers. So now the modifiers, along with the settings of those modifiers, are now applied to these arms. So now we need to do the same thing to the other more parts. So we'll hide the arms. We'll bring in the guns. So we're going to select these guns, go to the upper left, go to edit mode. So here what we need to do is we need to go to edge select, go to select sharp edges, go down to the select sharp edges menu, change this from 30 to 70, press enter to lock that in. I'm going to zoom back some, hold control, press E, go to edge bevel weight, left click, You can see the edge bevel weight in the corner there. So I'll left click. The edge bevel weight isn't all the way up. However, I can left click here, press 1, then press enter. So now that has the bevel edge weight as well. You don't see the purple lines because I have that set to not show. However, the bevel edge weight is set. Okay, I'm gonna left click to deselect. I'm gonna go to the upper left, go to object mode. I'm gonna go to the modifier that we have, the mirror modifier. I'm gonna apply this. The reason why I'm applying this is because we're going to take the modifiers from our Mech with its settings. We're going to apply those settings to the gun using make links. Our mirror modifier would have disappeared. So I'm going to right click, select shade smooth. So with this selected, I'll hold shift, left click on our Mech, hold control, press L. This brings up our make links menu. I'm going to select modifiers. So now you can see this has those modifiers applied to it. Okay, I like how the arms turned out. I like how the guns turned out. I'm not going to go through the process with the missile launchers. The process should be, for the most part, the same. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring back the arms with the guns selected. I'm going to double click here, name this guns. I'm going to select the arms, double click there, name them arms. Okay, I'm going to go to the guns. I'm going to select the eye to turn them off. With the arm selected, I'm going to go to the upper left. I'm going to go to edit mode. Here in edit mode, I'm going to go to face select. I'm going to go to wireframe. This mech is not part of this this object, so we can safely hold control, hold the right mouse button, go around this arm, go back to solid view, then press P to bring up our separate menu, and then choose selection. I'm going to left click to try to deselect nothing. I'm going to go to upper left, go to object mode. I'm going to turn off the arms, turn on the guns, select on the guns, go to the upper left, go to edit mode, we're on face select. I'm going to go to wireframe mode. The only things in this object are the guns. The mech isn't, so we can hold control, hold the right mouse button to safely select the guns, or the gun. In this case, I'm going to go to solid view. I'm going to press P. This brings up our separate menu. I'm going to choose selection. I'll left click on nothingness to try to deselect. Then I'll go to the upper left and then go back to object mode. Okay, I'm going to select this gun. I'm going to name this RA, then press enter. I'll select this gun, double click here, name this LA, then press enter. I'll select this gun, go to object, set origin to geometry. I'll select this gun, object, set origin to geometry. I'll hide these guns, select the arms. Oops, wrong. There we go. I'll select this arm, double click here. I'll name this RA. Double click here. I'll name this left A. I'll select this arm, go to object, set origin to geometry. I'll select this arm, go to object, set origin origin to geometry. And I'll left click to deselect. Okay, I can see I misnamed the guns, so I'm gonna select the arms. Well, I hid the arms. Now I'm gonna select this gun. I'll double click here. I'll name this right gun. I'll select there. I'll name this left gun. Okay, so what we can do is so we have the left gun here, right? We can go to right gun and then bring in the right arm. So we can actually have different setups for our mech. So for now, I'm going to hide that arm, then bring in this gun. Okay, there is something we need to do with these guns. I'm going to select here, go to the upper left, go to edit mode. I'm going to go to edge select, and then what I'm going to do is go to select sharp edges, very similar to before. Change this to 70. Then I'm going to hold Control, press E. This brings up our edge menu, I should say. We're going to select Mark Seam. So we don't see the seam because I have that turned off in the overlays. We're going to go back to upper left and then go back to object mode. So the same thing, I'm going to select here. Go to edit mode. We're on edge select sharp edges. This is already set for 70. I'll hold Control, press E, and then select Mark Seam. Then I'll left click to deselect, go back to the upper left, then go back to object mode. I'll left click to deselect. Okay, this current mesh is about 185,000 triangles. For animation, most of the time I try to shoot for about 30,000 triangles. I try to be around that area. How do we keep this level of detail and be able to use our mech for animation? And the way we can do that is we can use this to bake a normal map to the lower poly mesh. So, for instance, as a matter of fact, saying that, we actually need to select this gun. I realize now we're going to right click, select new collection. This new collection, we're going to name this low poly. So we'll select this gun, hold shift, press D, right click, and then we'll press M, and then we'll select to move that to low poly. The same thing here. We'll hold shift, press D, right click, press M, and then select to move that to low poly. So we're going to hide the low poly collection right now. We're also going to hide the high poly guns. There's the same geometry right now, so don't let that confuse you. I'm going to bring back the arms. We're going to do a similar thing. We'll select this arm, shift D, right click, press M. We'll move this to low poly. We'll select this arm, hold shift, press D, right click, we'll press M. We'll move this to low poly as well. Okay, so you might say, how can those objects be low poly if they're the same geometry as this? Well, what we can do is we'll go to more parts, hide that collection. We'll select the eye so we can see our low poly collection. We'll select this low poly object, and we'll go to, you can go through and delete these manually. Matter of fact, we'll just do that. So we'll select X, X. So now that doesn't have the modifiers. We'll select this, X, X. Same thing for the other side. We'll select the gun. So now with the modifiers off, they are low poly. Okay, so even though they're low poly now, what we can do is I'm going to select the eye to hide them. We can take the detail from the high poly objects and put them onto the low poly objects using something called normal maps. One thing what I'm about to show you, your objects need to be in the same position. When I say objects, I mean the low poly objects as well as the high poly objects. Okay, the first thing we're going to do is let's select our high poly mech. Looking for the low poly mech, so we'll hide that. Bring in the low poly mech. So hopefully when we put the seams in here, the UVs will be set up for us in a nice way. So with this selected, we're going to go up to the top. These tabs up here allow you to work. They're set up for you to be able to work for whatever particular thing you're doing in Blender. In this case, UV editing. So we're going to select the UV editing tab. We're going to go to Phase Select. We're going to press A to select all of our objects. Then we're going to press U and then select Unwrap. Okay, you can take your time setting up UVs. This is, using the select sharp to set up UVs is one way of doing this. What we need to do now is select new. We're going to name this normal. We'll press enter to lock that in. We're going to set this for 20, 48. This also 20, 48. Color really doesn't matter. We'll select OK. Okay, what you want to do is go to Image, Save As. Make sure you have a folder set up. I'll double click on this Textures, and then I'll select Save As Image. Okay, while we're here, we might as well bake an ambient occlusion image as well. So what we'll do is we'll select X, select new. We'll name this AO. We'll change this to 2048 by 2048. We'll press enter to lock that in. Then we'll select OK. Then we'll go to Image, Save As Image. Okay, what we're going to do now is we're going to go to Layout. We want to check and make sure that our normals are correct. So we'll go to, with this low poly mech selected, we'll go to Edit Mode. We'll then go to our overlays. We're going to go down to Face Orientation. See these red areas? These are where the normals are not facing the correct direction. You can go to Mesh, down to Normals, and then select Recalculate, or you can press Shift N. So we're going to hold Shift, then we're going to press N. So now those normals have been recalculated. So we'll go to the upper left, go to Object Mode. Okay, so we can keep this face orientation on. We can go to our objects. We'll quickly be able to see what is correct as far as our normal. So we're going to hide the low poly, bring in the high poly. We can see this has issues, so we'll select this. We'll go to the upper left. We'll go to edit mode. Press A, hold shift, press N. So now that's correct. I'll left click to deselect. Go to the upper left, go back to object mode. Okay, before Blender 2.8, you had to work with each object individually. What we can do now is we'll hide the low poly. We'll bring in the high poly. We'll turn on our more parts. The ones that we want to make sure are correct. And what we can do is we'll select our main mesh. We'll hold shift. Select all of the places where we see issues. So I'm letting go of shift. So I selected all of those objects. Now I can go to the upper left. I can go into edit mode of all of these objects at the same time. I'll press A. Then I'll hold shift and press N. So I've recalculated all of those normals all at the same time. So I'll left click to deselect, go to the upper left, and then go to object mode. Okay, I'm going to left click to deselect. I'm going to go to our high poly, hide that. I'm going to go to our more parts, hide that. So I'm going to do it, select these parts here. I'm going to hold shift, still holding shift. I'm letting go of shift, so now I'll go to the upper left, go to edit mode. Okay, so with all these objects selected, I'm going to go to UV editing. I'm going to select A to select all of them, then press U. Then I'm going to select Unwrap. So now I'm going to go to UV. Then I'm going to select Pack Islands. Left click. Okay, that should be good. So I'm going to go to back to layout. So for now I'm going to hide the low poly objects. I'm going to bring back the high poly as well as the low poly mech. Okay, when you start up Blender, by default you're in Eevee. To bake currently, you need to go to cycles. So we're going to go to the upper right. We're going to change the render engine from Eevee to cycles. We're going to go to the shading tab near the upper middle part of the screen. Okay, to set up a bake, we need to go to we want to be selected on the low poly object. We're going to go to add texture, image texture. You can go to open, where you can search for your image. However, Blender, typically when you select the arrow, Blender has an idea. Okay, because I said that it doesn't. So I'm going to select it. Well, I did the last one. It looked at the last one, which was the AO. So we'll select normal. By the way, if you wanted to see your picture, you could select thumbnails. I'm going to select open image. Okay, this is all we need for the nodes to bake with. Now we need to go to where we see bake, we'll select arrow. See this bake type combined, we'll select there. We'll then set this to normal. We're going to select this arrow. We're going to put a check mark next to select it to active. Okay, what we're going to do is go to the solid view. We're going to go to the arrow. We're going to go to random. We did this. I'm going to hold the middle mouse button and rotate to make things easier for us as far as knowing what is the high poly as well as the low poly. I'm going to select the I for the low poly. So the low poly is the green. The purplish color is the high poly. The order that you set things up is important. First, you need to select the high poly so you can see that selected. Then you hold shift, select the low poly. So now the order is correct for us to prepare to bake. Okay, typically for ray distance, I would set this to 0.5. However, through working with this, 0 seems to work better. So we're going to leave that set for 0. We're then going to select the bake. Okay, so now we have this bake right here. The green parts are some imperfections. However, this looks decent. So we'll go to the 3 lines, hover over image, and then we can go to save as. So we'll select save as image. Okay, since we're here in cycles, we're going to set up to bake our ambient occlusion. We're going to go to this node, select the X button to remove the picture there. We're going to go to open, select AO, go to open image. We're going to go to bake type. We're going to select the arrow, select ambient occlusion. Our AO is selected, that image node, so we're ready to go. Okay, so we're going to select bake. Okay, so we have our ambient occlusion here. So we'll select the 3 lines. We'll go to, we'll hover over the image. Then we'll go to save as image. So then we'll select save as image. Okay, so what we'll do now is we'll go to our render engine. We'll select Eevee. We'll hide the high poly. We'll select here. So to set up to have our normal work, I'm going to go to base color, make this a darker color. I'm going to turn on the ambient occlusion here. I'm going to go to add vector to normal map. So you'll see normal as well as normal map. You want normal map. I'll left click there. So then what you want to do is you want to go to color space. You'll select that. You want to select non-color. For that color space, you'll go from color to color. Hold the mouse button to pan. You'll go from normal to normal. Oh, this is the ambient occlusion. I had the wrong thing loaded in there. So take that out. Go to open, normal, open. It's good except for here. So the legs came out very well. Okay, I'll show you how you can deal with that. So with this selected, we'll go to UV editing. So what we can do is go to object mode. We'll select our viewport shading. Okay, so we can still see what's going on with our viewport shading. So we'll select here. We'll hold shift, we'll select here, as well as here, as well as here, here, here. I let go of shift to hold them in the mouse button. We'll select here, here, hold shift, select here, here, here. We have this on the other side as well, so we'll press C for paint select. This here, it's here, right click. It's here as well. Select this here. Well, so we'll right click, we'll hold shift. I think we have most of the issues, the areas that have issues in them selected. Okay, so with those issues areas selected, what we can do is go to UV. Then export UV layout. So select export UV layout. Okay, once you have that exported UV layout, you want to go to where you have your picture stored at. Here's the exported UV layout. I'll right click. I'm going to select open with GIMP. GIMP is a open source image manipulation program. That you can download for free. So here is the UV image layout. So now I'll go to the normal, right click, select open with GIMP. So now what we'll do is we'll go to this layer. This is our right click, duplicate this. I'm going to select this layer, go to edit, copy, select here. I'm going to go to edit, paste in place. One thing that's different about GIMP compared to Photoshop is you'll have these floating selections to deal with them when you see them. Select a new image button. So now you can see where the issues are at, right? So here's the normal map. I'm going to right click, I'm going to duplicate that so I can go back to the duplicate in case I have an issue. Okay, so what you want to do is go to the left. You'll probably see the heal brush. You want to switch to the clone brush. You can hold control to zoom in. So I'll hold control, left click. When I left click with the clone brush on, I sample from wherever this is at. See that? I'll take that color. Now I can take that color, basically paint with that color. And that color, think of that color as like the color of non-issues. So I can left click, hold shift, and then I'll be able to paint a line, which is pretty useful. So you're basically painting out the distortion. Left click. And what I'm doing is I'm using the UV as a way to know what's messed up. Because wherever that UV grid kind of pattern is at, is that's what we selected. So I'm left clicking. See this area here. Here. I'm clicking with the middle mouse button to drag the picture. So I'm looking for the UV so I can fix the mess ups. So that's here. This here. This was here. I think that's most of it. Okay, so what you do once you have this cleaned up is you hide the UV, right? I'll go to the Move tool. You go to File, Export as Normal. So we'll select Export, Replace. So this went right over that old normal. So now we go back. So there's the normal right there. We go back to Blender. This is the ambient occlusion. The normal map, this is, I guess this is confusing, so out there. So we'll go to object mode. Let's go to shading. So we'll select the normal. You see how most of those, well, there's still some. A lot of the things, if you take your time, you can have better results. Hopefully you know how you can fix things now. So I'm going to go to this base color, give this like a bluish color. This normal one issue we're having, that we have this sRGB. We need to set this to non-color. There we go. Much better. Much better. Okay, one thing we're going to do is go to the upper left-hand side of the screen, the layout. We're going to go to the overlays menu, and then I'm going to look to this face orientation and then select that check box to turn that off. I'm going to go back to shading now, or we're back in shading now. Okay, so we have our normal map on this model. The normal map allows lower poly models to look like they have much higher detail. We're about to add an ambient occlusion map that we made. Ambient occlusion tends to generally make models look better. Ambient occlusion works by not actual lighting. It works by the distance of two objects towards each other. So when you have two objects close to each other, typically there's darkness as the objects get close to each other. So that's how ambient occlusion works. So ambient occlusion is it's kind of a way of working with shadows. So the way I'm going to show you is how I set up ambient occlusion. There's numerous ways of doing this. We're setting up an ambient occlusion from an ambient occlusion map. There's also a way of setting up ambient occlusion through a node. However, this is using the ambient occlusion map that we produced. Okay, so to do this, I'm going to hold down the mouse button to pan down. I'm going to go to Add Texture, Image Texture. I'm going to select Add Converter Color Ramp. Moving these nodes over. I'm going to go to Add Color Mix RGB. Okay, in this image texture, we're going to select Open. We're going to go to where our ambient occlusion is stored at. So here is my ambient occlusion. If you wanted to see a picture of what your textures look like, you could select here. Now you can see the actual ambient occlusion. So I'm going to left click there, then select Open Image. Okay, like I mentioned previously, this is how I set things up. There's multiple ways of doing this. So we're going to go from the color to the fact of the color ramp, from the color to the color 2 of the mix RGB. We're then going to go from the color of the mix RGB. Actually, before we do this color 1 right here, you're going to left click on this color 1, select the eyedropper, and then select the color that you chose for the base color. Now you're going to take the color of the mix RGB, then connect that to the base color of the printable BSDF. Okay, you can see the color changed. I'll zoom in here so you can hopefully see this better. So what you want to do is take note of the fact that the color ramp connected to the ambient occlusion is running into color 2. This factor is set for 0.5, which is the influence is set for half of color 1, which is this color, as well as half of color 2. When you take the factor all the way up, the color 2 is fully put in, right? So we want to take this all the way up. Then what we want to do is, when you see this mix, this is a blending mode, very similar to you would see in something like Photoshop or GIMP. So what we want to do is select this arrow, and then we want to change this blending mode to multiply. Okay, so once we have that, we can see we have our color back. I'll zoom in some more. We can now adjust the color ramp, how much of the color ramp shows through, by adjusting the houses here in the ambient occlusion. Also, while you do this, you want to look to your upper right. You want to make sure you have ambient occlusion turned on there. So this is we could go in to the ambient occlusion, very similar like we did to the normal map, to fix this. For now, we'll leave it like it is. So adjust your ambient occlusion. To how you think it should look. Okay, so what we want to do is set up our guns as well as our arms. I'm going to left click to drag this down. Okay, so we're about to turn on our guns as well as our arms. When we turn those on, they're going to look messed up because they're going to have the material that's been set up for the main mech body here, so be prepared for that. So I'm going to select the eye to turn them on. Here they are. You can see they're not right. We'll select them. We'll go to the material tab, and then we'll select the minus to take off these materials. Okay, so we'll hide these. We'll bring in the lower poly version of them, pretty much do the same thing. Okay, we need to check the face orientation of the high poly as well as the low poly guns as well as the arms. We also need to bake ambient occlusions for them as well as normal maps. One of the nice features of Blender 2.8 as well as Blender 2.83 that we're using, you can work with multiple objects in edit mode at the same time. This actually allows us to bake as well as set up UVs for multiple objects at the same time. So that's what we're going to do to get through this in a decent amount of time that should work out for us. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is to hide the arms. We're going to go to more parts, hide the arms for the more parts. Okay, what we're going to do is go to these low poly guns, hide them. With these high poly guns, we're going to select one, hold shift, then select the other one. Then we're going to hold control, then press J, so that these are now one object. The reason why we can do this is because we need the ambient occlusion as well as the normal map. However, we don't need to have these be separate. We will want that for the lower polygons, for them to be separate so we can mix them up with the arms. this should work fine, these being one object. So right now there's only one gun right there, which is fine. So what we're going to do is we're going to hide these parts now. Now we're going to unhide the lower polygons. Okay, with these low polygons, we do want these to be separated. So we're going to select this one, hold shift, press D, right click. Select this one, hold shift, press D, right click. Okay, so what we're going to do is we can see left gun 1, left gun, basically left gun 1, it's left gun .001. The ones that have end with 1, left gun .001, right gun .001. We want to hide these. These guns, we're going to select them with holding shift, then hold control, then press J. The reason why we're joining these is just for the sake of time. That's why we're joining them. We're keeping the other guns separate for the purpose that we'll be able to have one gun on one side as well as a arm on the other side in the future. As we work on this, whether it just gives us a way to have that set up. Okay, so we're going to name this low both guns. Then I'll hide these, go to more parts, and name this high both guns, standing for high poly. Okay, so we're going to do pretty much the same thing that we did with the arms. With the guns. So we'll bring in these arms. So these are the high poly arms. So we'll select one, hold shift, select the other. Then we'll hold control, press J to join them together. Okay, so now we'll hide those guns. Bring back the low poly, hide the low polygons. Bring back the low poly arms. We did that all by turning those eyes on. And when I roll the mouse wheel to zoom back. So what we're going to do is select this, hold shift, press D. We duplicated that, right click. To get that to stay in place, we'll select here, hold shift, press D. Then right click. I typically move to the side just to know that I actually duplicated the objects. Okay, so we're going to hide the LA.001, then the right A.002. So we selected the eyes to hide them. Okay, so with these two arms here, the duplicates, we selected the one, I'm holding shift, I'm selecting the other one. Now I'm going to hold control, press J to join them together. Okay, I'm going to double click, name this both arms, low. Okay, now I'm going to select both arms, high, or name this both arms high. Okay, what we're going to do now is we're going to use Blender's ability to work with the objects that we want to work with all at the same time to check their face orientation. That's why I'm turning all these on. So I'm going to go to, actually I think I have to get this to work, I'm pretty sure you have to select one, hold shift, select the next object, hold shift. So I'm holding shift and selecting these multiple objects. I'm looking here and I can see like this right gun isn't selected yet. So I'll select there. And the arms here, the same thing. So we have a bunch of objects. So because we have these bunch of objects, we don't have all the arms here selected. However, for these, what we're going to do is go to edit mode. So we're actually in edit mode for all of these different arms at the same time. I'm going to go to layout mode. I'm going to go to the overlays, the upper right of the screen, towards upper middle right. Select there, go to face orientation. So it looks like these are all good, which is good. So we'll left click to deselect them. We'll go to the low poly collection. What's going on here? Okay, so this here we can see this, the normals aren't right for that. So what we're going to do is go to edit mode, press A to select everything, hold shift, press N to fix that. Then here, we'll select those arms, hold shift, press N to fix that. So basically what was going on is our normals were not right. When we tried to bake our objects, we would have had issues because the normals weren't right. We pressed shift N, which what that did was we recalculated the normals. So the blue, the fact that the model is showing blue now is showing us that our normals are correct. Normals are the proper direction that normals should face, is how you can think of them. We could have went to mesh and then normals, and then we could have recalculated the normals. We used shift N as a shortcut for recalculate normals instead. Okay, now that we've done that, let's go to the upper left. Let's go to object mode. We're going to turn off our arms. We're going to go to our low poly. We're going to turn off all this stuff. We're then going to turn on low poly both guns. We're going to go back to shading. Okay, we want to go back to layout. We want to go to face orientation or overlays to make sure we have our face orientation turned off. Then we'll go back to shading. Okay, what we want to do now is we want to turn off our more parts for the high. We want to turn on our both arms low. We want to select the guns as well as the arms. Then we're going to go to UV editing. Okay, here we want to make sure we have face select on, which we do. We want to press A to select all of our pieces of mesh that we have. Okay, with these pieces of mesh selected, we're going to press U, and then we're going to unwrap them. Okay, we want to make a new picture, so we're going to go to new. We're going to name this both arms normal. The name is important that you don't have this named just normal, because you do not want to erase your original normal map if you're going to store your pictures in the same place like I am. So we're going to change this resolution to 2048 by 2048. We'll select OK. We'll select image, save as, make sure you know where this is going to. Then we'll select save as image. Okay, in between videos, this my normal image isn't showing up. It's fine because I already had that saved. Anyway, we need to make another picture or image. So I'm going to select new. We're going to name this AO arms. Really, this should be arms as well as guns because it's both. We'll make this 2048. 2048. So I'm leaving this AO arms. Trying to say to myself, look, it's both of them because I named the normal arms as far as I can remember. So I'm going to select OK. So now we have this, right? So we'll go to image, save as. And then save that as well. Okay, it's important to remember that when you're doing normal maps as well as ambient occlusions, the maps, as far as the UVs, the setups need to be on the lower poly version of what you're working on, not the high poly. The lower poly is what gets your UVs. Okay. Okay, what we need to do now is go to our shading tab. We're going to go to the second button towards the right. We're going to change our render engine from Eevee to cycles. We did that because right now you have to bake in cycles. Okay, so we'll go through the baking process for our guns first. So we'll turn off the arms. We'll turn on the high poly parts. So we have the guns showing for the high poly as well as for the low poly. Okay, so first we want to select the low poly guns. So the high poly guns are showing, however, we're selected currently on the low poly guns. So what we want to do is go to this materials tab, select that, then select new. Okay, for the baking process, we're going to go to add texture, image texture. Then we're going to go to open. We're going to select that both arms normal, PNG. Okay, what we need to do is look to this second button here. Look for bake. The bake is still set up from before. We're going to change this to normal so we can bake a normal map. Okay, before we move forward, we need to do something, and what that is we need to go to UV editing. We're going to zoom back. This part of the barrels here are represented by this. This is going to cause us issues in the future. I'm holding the mouse button to rotate. I'm going to left click and drag the hand. We're going to left click on nothingness to deselect. We'll go to edge select here. And then we're going to hold control, press E, and then select mark seam. I'm going to select the hand, pretty much do the same thing here. Select here, hold control, press E, select mark seam. Okay, so with that done, I'm going to zoom back. I'm going to go to face select, hover here, press L, hover here, press L. Then I'm going to press U to bring up our unwrapping menu. Then I'm going to select unwrap. Okay, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to select here, hold shift, select there as well. I'm going to hold control, press L, roll the mouse wheel back, press G, move this to the side, left click to put that out of the way, left click here to deselect, press A to select everything, and I want to press S to scale this down. I'm going to hold the mouse button to pan. I'll press G to move these closer to this position here. Okay, with this select, I'm going to press R90, then enter to lock that in. I'm going to roll my mouse wheel to zoom in, hold the mouse button to pan. I'm going to press S to scale this down, press G, and then move this into place here. I'll left click to lock that in. Okay, I'm going to left click on nothingness to deselect. Just so you're not confused, there was an issue with this as I got near towards the end of the tutorial. So I made this change. I'm putting this in where it makes sense to put this in the tutorial. Just if you see slight differences between the UV as you're working up to towards the end of the tutorial, this is because this is a fix just to make things easier to deal with this area of the guns. So following along from here, everything should flow nicely. I just wanted you to, if you saw the UV and you saw this was different, particularly in this area, that's why this is an edit from later on in the tutorial. Okay, I'm going to go to shading. So the rest of the tutorial should follow on the way it should. Okay, so with that done, with this selected, we need to make sure that we have the high poly gun selected first, then the low poly. The order is important. We're going to go to solid view. We still have this set up for random, which is good. We'll select the low guns, hide them, so we can see that they're like the bluish color. So we want to select the purple first, hold shift, and then select the blue, which are the low poly guns second. Okay, so with everything set up, we're going to select bake. Okay, so we can see our normal map here. We're going to go to the 3 lines, go to image. This asterisk symbol means that the image isn't baked yet. We're going to select save as. We're going to change this to guns. Then we're going to select save as image. Okay, what we're going to do now is we're going to hide the guns, the low guns as well as the high guns. We're going to bring in the high poly arms as well as the low poly arms. Will hide the low poly arms so we know that they're like this color here. The green is the high poly. Okay, so we're going to use this same normal map, which might seem strange to you. We're going to keep it the same. We're going to rebake over it because until we save this, we have this normal map is safe in our save file, right? So we're going to bake over this with the normal map for the arms, and then we're going to change the name so we don't save over this file that's safe in our files, all right? So first we need to select the high poly. You can see we have the arms. We hold shift, then we select the low poly. Oh, okay, so the low poly does not have, we'll select the, wait a second. The low poly, we need to put a material on it, so we'll select the material. We need to go to add texture, image texture. We'll open, okay, in this case, we'll use the both arms normal PNG. Let me go here, go to thumbnails. We'll use this one right here. So this one is saved that we have. We'll select here. We'll select open image. Okay, we need to left click on nothingness to deselect. We need to select first the high poly. We can tell looking here, we have the high poly selected first. We'll hold shift, select the low poly. We need to make sure that we have this node selected, so it's the active node. We'll go back to here, so we have bake, bake normal, select it to active, everything looks good. So we'll select bake. Okay, so there's our normal map. We'll go to the 3 lines, image, save as. This actually makes sense being called both norms. We have our both guns normal, so we'll leave the name. We'll select save as image. Okay, what we want to do now is set up to bake our ambient occlusion. To do that, we need to go to this funnel. So we'll left click the arrow, and this camera here, we need to select that to turn that on. And what this camera does is this camera enables things to render or disables things to render. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to go to where we see both arms high. We're going to go to this camera and then left click and slide down. So we have all of those renders turned off. We'll turn this render on as well as this render. This render is the render for all of our low poly objects. So with that set up, what we'll do is we'll go to this bake type. We'll select here. We'll change this to ambient occlusion. We'll look for our, I'm going to go to the upper right, select thumbnails. So this ambient occlusion arms, we'll select this. We'll select open image. Our settings being the same to the right should work fine for us. We do want to make sure that we select the high poly first. So the high poly is the green, so we'll select the green. You can see we're selected on the high poly. We'll hold shift. Then we'll select the low poly. With the polygons, the high poly selected first, the low poly selected second. That's very important. With that set up, we are now ready to render our ambient occlusion. Okay, so now we'll select the bake. Okay, so the bake looks like it worked well. We'll go to the 3 lines. We'll go to image, save as. I'm going to put in bake and save as image. Okay, we'll bake the ambient occlusion for our guns now. So we're going to turn off the view as well as the render. For these arms, we'll go to the high both guns, turn the view on as well as the render. To low both guns, turn the view on as well as the render. Okay, we changed the name of this to bake, so we can actually leave this in. We want to go to the low, we want to the low both guns, so that's blue. The high both guns is the purple. So first we want to select the purple. You can see that selected the high both guns. We'll hold shift and then select the blue. There we go. So now with this setup, we're ready to bake. Okay, we are ready to bake. Okay, we have our bake. We'll go to the 3 lines, go to image, save as. We want to name this AO. Okay, now what we can do is we can turn off the high polygons. So we'll roll the mouse wheel to zoom back. I'll go add texture image to bring another image texture in. Move this over. I'll go add vector normal map. I'll also go add converter color ramp. As well as add color mix RGB. Okay, since we have our baked pictures, we can go back to Eevee. So for this picture, what we want to do is select both guns, ambient occlusion. We want to go from the color of the ambient occlusion into color of the normal map. There we go. Hold my middle mouse button trying to go up. We want to go from normal to normal, from the normal map to the normal and the principled shader. I called this an ambient occlusion. I meant normal map. I'm going to roll the mouse wheel to zoom in. See this color space here where it says sRGB? You want to click the arrow and then change this to non-color. Okay, with this set up, now when we go from solid to our viewport shading, we can see that our low poly geometry has the look of high poly geometry. Okay, what we want to do now is go to this image texture, select open. We want to go to our both guns ambient occlusion, select that, then select open image. We want to go from the color of the image texture to the fact of the color ramp, from the color of the color ramp to the color 2 of the mix RGB, then from the color of the mix RGB to the base color of the principal BSDF. Okay, we want to use the color ramp to adjust the ambient occlusion. We also want to take this factor all the way up where we see mix, kind of hard for you to say, the mix shader here. We're going to change this to multiply. So we adjust the ambient occlusion according to how much we want to show with the color ramp as well as the factor. For this color, what we want to do is select the color, go to the eyedropper, select the color of our main mech. Then we'll go to specularity, take that down, take roughness down, take metallic up. And for this ambient occlusion, where we see that all that blackness, what we can do is select here, go to the eyedropper, select the color there, go back to the color here, make this color a darker version of that color. We'll left click to deselect. Okay, as far as this this white here, I have forgotten to hide the high poly version of both guns. So when I select that, now that is gone. I take the hand to right to pan up. Okay, we're coming towards the end of the tutorial. What we're going to do is add some extra colors in. So I'm going to left click on our main body of our mech. We're going to go to the upper left, go to edit mode. See how you see these red lines here? If you don't want to see that, you can go to overlays, go down to bevel. Okay, seams, there we go. Okay, so seams took that away. Then if we select bevel, the other lines go away. I'm gonna left click to deselect. Okay, what we're going to do now is we're going to go to the material tab towards the bottom lower right. We're going to go to the plus button to select a new, make a new material. Then we're going to select new. So now we have this material, and we're going to start applying this material. We'll apply the material first, and we'll start adjusting it later. Okay, so what we want to do is go to face select, which we're on. We're going to select this face, hold shift. We're holding shift so we can select more than one face at a time. So we have, I'm letting go of shift of these faces here selected. Okay, one thing we can do to make things easier for ourselves is we can go to select similar, and then we'll go to perimeter. So now when we selected that perimeter, we selected most of these sides, most of these faces around our mech. So for now, I'm going to select this material and then select assign. Okay, I want to select these circular shapes that are on the outside. So this I'm going to do manually. So I'm going to hold shift. What I'm doing is selecting the center part of these shapes. So I'm holding the middle mouse button to rotate. I'll zoom in. Let go of shift so I can zoom. Going to the right towards the hand. I panned up using the hand with a left click. Holding shift. Selecting this center piece. I'm letting go of shift. Letting go of shift. I'm going to use the hand to pan up. Holding shift again. Okay, I'm going to hold the middle mouse button to rotate. So I selected just that one face just because that was easy to select. Now we can go to select and then select more / less and then choose more. So now we have the whole face. I'm holding the middle mouse button to rotate. Then we'll select assign. Okay, when I selected assign, I selected this material. You want to go to this material and then select assign. I'll left click to deselect. I'm going to take the hand to pan down. I'll zoom in. We're on face select still. I'll select this face here. I'll zoom in. I'll press C for paint select. So I'm manually painting the face there. I'll right click to get out of paint select. Go to that second material and then select assign. I'll left click to deselect. Okay, I'm going to select here. Hold shift. Roll the mouse wheel to zoom back. Hold the middle mouse button to rotate. I'm going to hold shift, select here as well as here. Select that second material, then select assign. Okay, I'm going to zoom back. I want to select this right here. I'm going to go to vertex select, select here. Then I'm going to hold control, press L. Now I'm going to go to face select. Because this has seams in here, if I had selected this with face select, then tried to press L, I'm pretty sure I couldn't have selected this. By switching to vertex select and then holding control, then pressing L, I was pretty much able to do the same thing. So with that selected, I'll select assign, then left click to deselect. Okay, what I'm going to do is zoom back, hold the mouse button, rotate, go to the upper left, go to object mode, select these guns, and then go to the upper left, then go to edit mode. Then I'll left click to deselect. Okay, I'm going to zoom in. I'm on face select. I'm going to hold Alt, left click. Then I'm going to hold Alt, hold shift, and then left click. I'll select new for a new material. The plus I selected, then new. The reason why I did that is because this is a different object, so you wanted to make a new material. So now that we have that new material, what we want to do is click this arrow here and select that material too. Then select assign. The reason why we wanted to do that is when we change the one material, we want all of the other materials that are, all the other meshes that are connected to it to change as well. So I'm going to left click to deselect. I'm going to left click here, hold shift, left click there. Select that material, select the sign. Okay, what we're going to do now is select these circular shapes. I'm going to, well, I'll left click first. Now I'm going to hold shift. I'm letting go of shift, or I let go of shift, held the middle mouse button to rotate, holding shift, letting go of shift. Okay, I'm going to hold control as well as the middle mouse button to zoom back. Holding shift. Letting go of shift. Okay, what I'm going to do now is go to select, select more, or select more slash less, and then select more. So then I'm going to select this material 2 and then select assign. Okay, I'm going to hold control, hold the middle mouse button to zoom back, hold the middle mouse button to rotate, hold control to zoom in, go to the right to pan up, hold control as well as the middle mouse button to zoom in, pan up using the hand. I'm going to go to the upper left, then go to object mode. Okay, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take down the specular, take down the roughness sum. So we're on this material .002. I'm going to take the metallic up. So I'm holding the middle mouse button, taking a look. I'm going to press the T key, okay. I'm looking, I'm like, okay, I can see the metal here. It doesn't look like I can see the metal. Okay, I can see it on the white parts here. Okay, there's one other, well, two other things we're going to do. We're going to hold control, hold the middle mouse button to zoom in. So when we zoom in, how smooth this looks here. Let's deal with that. So we're going to left click here. We're going to select this material here. So I'm holding control as well as the middle mouse button to zoom back. So what we want to do here is give a roughness to this material. Okay, one of the ways we can add roughness to the material is using a Voronoi shader as well as a bump map. So we're going to go to Add Texture, Voronoi. We'll put this here. We want to use a color ramp to help control this. So we'll go to Add Converter, Color Ramp. Then we're going to go to Add Vector, Bump. We'll put the bump over here. Okay, I'm going to enlarge this window so you can see this easier. I'm going to hold control, press the space bar. So what we want to do is go from distance, the distance of the Voronoi texture into the fact of the color ramp. From here, we want to go from the color ramp color into the height of the bump map. We're going to disconnect the normal map. Go from the bump normal map to the normal of the principled BSDF. From the normal map, we're going to plug that into the normal of the bump map. Then I'm going to hold control, then press space to zoom back. So I'll hold the mouse button to pan. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold control, hold the middle mouse button to pan back. So you might be able to see this slight kind of strange pattern there. What we want to do is look, I'll hold control as well as the middle mouse button to pan in. So see the scale says 5. We want to take this up past 250. So you can see right here what's going on there. Take it all the way up. So now, with how that looks, what you want to do is I'm going to hold the middle mouse button to pan. The strength is currently set to 1.000. We're going to change this to 0.1 and then press enter to lock that strength in. Okay, with that done, I'm going to hold control, hold the middle mouse button to zoom in. Hopefully you can see this. So now there is a roughness to this that helps to add to what's going on there. You can take this up higher. I take it up to about 350. There we go. So typically the way that this is, the if you want to call them bumps, go in. What you can do to have them come out, which I prefer, is switch the houses on your color ramp, and then the detail will actually come out instead of going in. Okay, I'm going to roll my mouse wheel to zoom back. I'm going to go to the hand, drag that down. I'm going to hold shift, press B to draw a zoom box to zoom in right here. Then I'm going to go to the upper left, go to edit mode. I'm going to select the face here, hold shift, then select the face there. I'm going to go to the right of the screen, select the plus button, then select new. I'm going to hold the middle mouse button to pan the view. I'm going to select this principal shader, press X to delete the principal shader, go to add texture, shader, and then select emission. Then I'm going to go from emission to surface. Okay, I'm going to assign this material. I'm going to select the color. I'm going to make the color be a yellowish color. So with that done, I'm going to go to the upper, I'm actually going to left click on nothingness to deselect, go to the upper left, go to object mode. Okay, what we're going to do is go to the right hand side of the screen. We're going to change our render mode from cycles to Eevee. Then we're going to roll the mouse wheel to zoom back. I'm going to go to rendered mode. Here in rendered mode, what I'm going to do in the menu to the right is I'm going to select bloom to turn that on. And then I'm going to take this bloom. I'm going to take this up to, let's try 100. So we have a nice bloom effect there. So I just went back to the viewport shading mode. Okay, I'm going to go to our layout mode. Then I'm going to go to the viewport shading. Hold the middle mouse button to rotate. I'm going to go to the overlays. I'm going to select this button to turn off the overlays. Then go to the upper left. Select the select box. I'm going to roll the mouse wheel to zoom in. Taking a look at what we have here. Okay, so we have all of our mech here taken to where I wanted it to go. We did not apply the normal maps to the arms. To apply the normal maps to the arms, you would follow the same technique that we use to apply the normal maps to the guns here. One thing you can take note of is you could switch the different panels on the mech around to give it a different look. You also can go into the material panel, change the main color of the materials while still keeping the Veranoid shading texture that we have on here. Okay, just taking a look at this. I like how this turned out. Okay, if you have made it this far, congratulations, because you have reached the end of the tutorial. For all of you out there who like the videos on this channel and reshare them, thank you very much. I really appreciate that. And if you are new to this channel, if you like the videos on this channel, you would like to see more, please subscribe, and thank you for viewing.